Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Of course, back here with Jeff. Another exciting market and M2Bio chat coming on. We're gonna do a little end of year kind of wrap up for M2Bio as well, but of course, gonna chat about the standard, the Teslas, the Bitcoin market volatility, what we're seeing, what Jeff thinks about the markets, and so on and so forth. But first things first, Jeff, how are you?
Feeling good. I've got a little bit of that cold that's going around. I mean, here in Cape Town, unfortunately, we supposedly we're responsible for the latest variant. Interestingly enough, just 2 weeks ago, I did leave here to go to the UK for a week. And then as soon as I got back here, kaboom, it started again. And it is weird, but yeah, I'm feeling better. I mean, I had the sore throat. I had a little bit of a pressure headache on top of my left eye, and a little bit of the neck, kind of uncomfortable neck pain. And congestion with a stuffed up nose, but no fever, no bone aches or muscle aches. So I don't know what it is, whether it was just a cold that I picked up in the UK or, it is what it is, but I'm feeling better. I turned the corner and I've got energy back. I certainly didn't have any energy for 4 or 5 days last week, but I got it back now.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking. How you doing, by the way?
I'm good. I mean, obviously, near Toronto, there's snow on the ground, at least in the time we're recording this. We'll see if it sticks around, but usually a little earlier than expected. But other than that, yeah, things are good.
Cool. Good to hear.
Well, did we want to dive in? I know a recent update we talked about, hey, markets, probably going to come down a little bit leading the end of year. They have, we recorded that about a month ago. Do you want to kind of give a general overview for the markets? I know we were joking before talking about the psychedelic industry and a bunch of others.
Sure. So, we are at coming up to year-end tax loss selling and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And also you have the issue with the political problem, instability in politics going on in America right now, which, that's something that I've been speaking about for over a year now since the new office came into effect with Biden in control, et cetera. I always said that it was, it is what it is. It's a different way of thinking. You either like it or you don't. But in my mind, I don't think it's great for the markets whatsoever. The amount of currency that's being created is a short-term fix to prop a bunch of stuff up. I mean, people are getting all these free checks and free money, and so many of them are buying stuff and even buying stocks with it. It's crazy. It's lunacy. It must stop. Hopefully it does at some point. But by the same token, or the other side of the coin, is that, we've seen a bunch of stocks in the last couple months get hammered and a bunch of sectors getting hammered. And that's because, in my mind, a lot of smart money has just said this is becoming absolute lunacy out there. And it's not a good time at the moment to continue to hold stocks when, we can take a good amount of profits off the table, in which many have. And, I've always said at the moment, I think you asked me in the last video, would I be a buyer of stocks? And I said no. And I maintain that until, maybe selective picking here and there. I kept, one that that I do like is Tesla and things like that. And, a few selective situations, but overall, I would not be at this time in the market. I would definitely be sitting on the sidelines and waiting for the market to really take a good kicking. And I think it's about to come.
Interesting. Well, what's that catalyst? I mean, that's what people are saying, and yeah, you're sharing a lot of sentiment that a lot of people are having too. It's funny, there's a fear and greed index, and it was reported at the beginning of this week actually that was at the lowest they've seen it in 3 years, and it was like 16 out of 100, so very fearful. It was the general consensus. I mean, what's that catalyst that is going to be that kind of spark that moves the market down?
So for me, it's always been the same one. It still hasn't changed, and that is Chinese real estate, Chinese banking, that will cause a massive disruption in all the capital markets. I've been saying that for a couple of years. I was definitely early, but it turns out, I think now, that I'm being, rewarded and correct in my thinking, that the majority of the banking situation in China is actually propped up with a bunch of fake forged documents. And it doesn't surprise me that the collateral itself is fake. Why would we be surprised? Why should we be surprised when, a lot of their economy was built on making fake goods? They're experts at that. They always have been. So why should we be surprised that maybe a lot of the so-called instruments, the financial instruments that they claim to own, or the buildings that they say have this particular backing, should it surprise any of us that maybe they don't? And I think that is what's going to come to the forefront, like Evergrande at this whatever they call it, Evergrande, Evergard, or whatever. I mean, that's what's coming to the forefront now, is we're starting to see a lot of these cracks in China where people are starting to look at, being able to look at a lot of the institutions saying, whoa, there is definitely a lot of games that are being played here.
So then, the next kind of question, I guess, is so what do you do? And if that's the kind of overview that people have, and when you talk about insider selling as well, and kind of all these kind of I
Yeah.
guess signs. How do you kind of how do you play the market in that case, or do you just say, hey, I'm going to wait and see what happens?
So, I mean, there are a bunch of great instruments, ETFs and stuff that you can play to position yourself on the downside, on the short side for any of the Asian, markets and stuff. So you can do that. Um, you gotta know what you're doing if you're doing that, though. It's not something for the small guy to be doing. Um, for the small guy, I would focus on, again, in some of the companies that I love, the Teslas of this world, that electric vehicles are not going anywhere. They're only going to get bigger. Probably some of the solar companies and technologies will do well. That's not going to go anywhere. We will perfect that at some point. It will take time, but we will get there. You just have to do a bit of work and find some of the better ones that are out there. And then your standard, some of the great banks that are around being run by great CEOs, those will always be pretty much sound. Um, but a lot of the other things, I mean, listen, Amazon's not going anywhere. I mean, they'll continue to sell online and they'll continue to do well. Their earnings are crazy. The ones that I get worried about for the average guy are the Googles of the world and the Facebooks, the social networks, and like Twitter. I mean, we saw Jack Dorsey step down last week. The new guy that stepped in, granted, he's not a new guy in terms of new guy. The company has been around, but the guy certainly has a different vision than Dorsey, and Dorsey's vision was certainly, narrowly focused on one side of kind of the political spectrum, and he made that very clear. And the new guy is making that even more clear, saying that, well, you think that, Jack thought a certain way. Well, you can, triple, quadruple that. That's how I think. So it's like that platform in my mind is going to be, alienated for a particular political leaning, group of people that want to communicate to each other. But in the end, what does that do? I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand why we have to go that way, but it is. And some of those stocks, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Facebook, as an example, I keep on asking people, where where's the new generation signing up to Facebook? And the answer is no. Are guys in your generation, Jason, the 25 to 35-year-old guys, are they signing up to Facebook? The answer is no. You guys are all leaving in droves. You can't stand it. You can't stand his attitude, Zuckerberg's attitude. And we're all having trouble with that. So what is that next version of Facebook?
Yeah, well, I look at it. I mean, obviously, Facebook owns Instagram, so Instagram definitely the biggest. You're still seeing a lot of success there, but you're
Totally.
starting to see some of these other kind of platforms popping up. I mean, what's interesting, I mean, Facebook changing, to a metaverse kind of angle, at least at its core. My question, do I think that they would be one of the major players? Yes, but how early are they? Is my other question. I mean, I'm a crypto guy at heart. Anyone who's watched knows that. But some of this metaverse stuff, in my opinion, is years away. The closest thing we have is the Decentraland, which if anyone's been in it is, pretty underwhelming for, kind of the grand scale. So at least that's how I look at it. I'm curious
Hmm.
your view.
Listen, Facebook always has been early, and there's nothing wrong with that. They've obviously set the trend with many things that they've done. I mean, they've tried coins, they've tried everything, none of them worked. They're coming back, trying it again, and that's cool. There's nothing. I mean, that's great thing. That's a great thing about them. They roll the dice, they give it a shot. If it works, they even remember they had the glasses. They've done all of it. Good for them. Will it work in the end? I don't know. But what I do know is that as a social network, much like Twitter, it is nothing but political garbage now. In fact, LinkedIn has become more of my Facebook. Where I see people posting pictures of their family picnics now on LinkedIn. It's like, okay, I get it. No one wants to do this on Facebook anymore. Let's get out of Facebook. Let's go use LinkedIn, and let's post more general kind of pictures and stuff there. And I'm hip with that. I think that's cool. I'm still using Twitter for now, but I don't get much traction out of that thing anymore. But LinkedIn I'm using, and I'm not sure what will be the next kind of iteration or version of social media.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what comes up.
Yeah.
But this kind of leads into back to market chat. Insiders, and I know we talked about this before hitting record, but interesting angle. Chamath had a little TikTok, I'm pretty sure, where he pushed out like, hey, if you're still investing, and if you're not rethinking your strategies after the richest people in the world are selling, large portions of their holding, then either you're smarter than them, or maybe you're taking too much risk. Curious what your take on that is.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree. I think that insider selling is at insane levels at the moment. But I mean, there's a lot of the richer guys that are selling, the guys that get the news, guys like Bezos or Musk or Dorsey or whoever. I mean, they kind of have to sell because of tax reasons. They got to raise the money to pay the tax on the gain. So I kind of get that, but if you look across the board, there is a ton of insider selling going on. And let's face it, the markets have had an incredible run. A lot of it fueled by money that really doesn't exist. At some point, I mean, time flies. We're almost in 2022. What happens, what happens in 2022 if there's an enormous change of politics and we go from, the Democrats to the Republicans, and all of a sudden there's a huge change? And then that leads to a 2024 change as well. And I mean, not just a small change, a massive change. Imagine all the things that would get rolled back that have recently been put into action. So, you like we were talking about earlier, you got to be careful in this market. You can't usually outsmart the insiders. They're usually selling for a reason. And you got to be cognizant of what the market is telling you. I mean, we could talk about it now, much like Bitcoin. This past weekend it had an enormous sell-off. It came back up and got back some of the losses, and then sold off again, and found a new level. But
15% in 20 minutes.
it was
Massive
nuts.
sell off.
Right. Now, if you're just an individual investor, how's that going to make you feel? You got to sit there and go, whoa. I mean, that's a classic whipsaw. And you need to, hopefully, I've always said in terms of, Bitcoin, it's not meant for the small guy. It really is meant for a guy that's got money that just doesn't care about ups or downs or whatever, and just, likes to play it, trading it, or he truly believes it's a long-term investment and buys it and puts it away. But for the small guy that thinks, oh, I can trade this once a week and do this, they're just going to get killed. And it is what it is. I've always said that the one I prefer out of all of these is Ether. I find it to be much more, it's less volatile, number one. And I find the use case for Ether much, much better than Bitcoin. So I'll still remain that way. And we talked a little bit about Tesla just earlier too. I mean, I'll continue pounding the pavement for him and the company. I just think that I've always said that, you can put that in your portfolio and just tuck it away. It's going to be volatile. It'll have its ups and downs, but you've got to bet on the jockey. And the jockey, Elon, is one incredibly talented and smart guy, and he'll have his weird moments. But overall, I mean, I'd back that guy all day long with his thinking. And that's what's look at the rewards in terms of had you invested in Elon, even 3 years ago, and when people were making fun of him all the time. Yeah, the guy's an idiot. You should be short. It's like I'd like to get all those guys in the room now and say, how do you guys feel now? How's it?
Yeah,
How's
I'd
it?
be curious how many
How's
of
that
them
short?
finally bought the stock, if any. I'm
What's
sure
that?
there's. I'd be curious, if you put a bunch of those big guys in a room and kind of
Yeah.
said, "Hey, like, what do you own now?" and ask if they bought the stock. I know there's been some of those kind of shorting, funds obviously actually turned into being long Tesla, which is pretty interesting. A good flip. But yeah, kind of, I guess, moving on. I mean, interesting markets, definitely, volatile, unsure of a lot of things. But do you want to kind of segue into M2Bio?
Sure. M2Bio, it's, here we're at the end of the year. It's been another great year for us. COVID for everyone has been a bit of a pain in the butt. We all know that. I'm not using COVID as an excuse for anything, but I look back and just 2 weeks ago, fortunately, I was able to travel to the UK. I attended the longevity conference, and it was my first time seeing, uh, you know, people that I haven't seen for almost 2 years. This is my first time seeing my co-founder, Dr. Anna, and I'm like, this is so weird that it's been 2 years. So, it has had an effect, and where you're able to sit down with somebody and do business face to face, I can't tell you how important that truly is. And for people to talk about, yeah, Zoom is everything, Zoom is great. I can tell you Zoom is okay, but it's just a tool to help you to get to that point where you are able to meet face to face. Because the takeaways I got from attending that conference 2 weeks ago were simply amazing. The people that I met, the ability to sit in a room and listen to presentations all day long. You could feel the vibration from the screen and coming into your body. You could absorb it. It just felt right. And so on that note, I mean, for us, we have we have a bunch of cool things we're actually doing here this month. And the reason we're doing that is to make sure that we're getting nicely cleaned up for a great start to 2022. We recently announced the cancellation of 5 million shares, so that was a good start. It would not surprise me that we announced very soon the cancellation of 20 million shares. So that's quite frankly half the company issued being canceled. So that's something that is very cool. And then we will be announcing. We made it was a small announcement today about Medspresso and a little bit about how the products are doing, and they're doing great. We're out in 78 locations now, and things are going well. People love the product, so I'm loving that. That's amazing. Product development in the line has been amazing. We have teas that are coming out, honeys, and all sorts of incredible stuff. So I'm really excited about that. In the psilocybin space, we will be making an announcement likely this week of a new company that's being created that is in the drug design space to treat mental health. And we'll be obviously much more, we'll be announcing much more about what that vision and mission is. I think we alluded to in our webinar going back about 2 months ago when we first announced Dr. Riyad Domingo joining the company. We got a bit into what it is that we're doing with precision medicine and drug design. We didn't say too much, but it was interesting that no more than a week later or 2 weeks later, that Atai almost word for word announced a very similar press release. So I think that's a good thing when a company like that has $1 billion in their bank, is kind of saying, yep, that's a good move. We'll make the same press release. So, lots of good things with the company, and we'll be making a lot of these press releases this month. I want to make sure that the company is nice on the capitalization standpoint, is nicely cleaned up and ready to do some things for the new year. And on the each division, which is pretty cool, we all have beautiful. Each division has its pitch decks that they'll be able to make public shortly as well. So the public can have full access and transparency to exactly what each division does, who's involved, what they do. And I, quite frankly, love that about, who we are and what we stand for. I always get frustrated, as you know, Jason, with companies that, number one, spend all their money on bullshit press releases all day long. And number two, don't tell you what they're doing. I mean, they sit there and they hide and they don't tell you anything. I'm the exact opposite. I always look at our shareholders as being people that support who we are, and that it's our duty to share information with them as much as we're allowed to share with them, and make them part of the journey. At the end of the day, if they're a part of the journey and they love what you're doing, they're going to be your greatest ambassadors ever. They will talk about our products. They will tell others to buy it. It's just, for me, it's a no-brainer way to conduct business. Be honest and transparent with your shareholders. They will then turn around and do nothing but wave the flag for you and the company. So long story short, this month, we're going to have a lot of cool stuff coming out. And this week, we've got a lot of cool, this week in particular, we'll probably, or this week, next week, probably be, I'm guessing, but 3 to 4 or 5 press releases coming out. It'll be kind of every day one will be coming out.
Wow. Oh, well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, yeah, love the transparency. I know we joke and talk seriously about, what other companies do from a press release standpoint, and kind of, how much BS is involved in it. But no, that's awesome, and all incredible updates. So that's great. Yeah, having customers be happy and, shareholders be happy is the most real form of marketing that you can get. So that's fantastic. But yeah, looking like a good end of the year and beginning of 2022. So that's great for M2Bio.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anything else we wanted to kind of squeeze in this video?
Not really. I'm very, I'm happy with how we performed this year as M2Bio as the company. I think we hit on all notes that we wanted to hit. Just like anything, you can always do better, but that's all part of learning. So it's all part of learning for 2022. We're taking December as our time to plan for 2022. We're spending a ton of time this month actually planning for January. Here in South Africa, Cape Town, well, in South Africa, they tend to take, well, remember, here's the summertime. So they tend to take, 4 weeks off, and they kind of shut down like mid-December, and they really don't open up till mid-January. So, but for me, it's always one of my most productive times in terms of planning and strategizing with the key members to get their input and start putting everything in place so that when we're ready to rock and roll, it's all ready to go. And I love this time of the year to do that type of stuff. So we have a lot of these incredible sessions where we bring in the different people from the different groups, whether it's the 3D printing group or the food science group, whatever it may be, and we do all these incredible things. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, no, awesome. That's an incredible 4 weeks of strategizing, planning. Kind of comes at a perfect time, end of the year, beginning of the year, to talk about what you're going to do for the next. So that's awesome. Looking forward to seeing some of those plans on the other side. But Jeff, thanks so much for joining. I think this was an awesome end of the year video.
Thank you so much, Jason. And always, I had an amazing year with you doing these videos. I appreciate your time and your effort and your crew behind you. And I wish you a ton of good luck with your upcoming venture that you've got coming out soon in the crypto space. You're a smart young dude that is always going to be successful. And I wish you nothing but the greatest success for this upcoming year as well, buddy.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks so much. We'll chat soon.
You got it, buddy.